Hey guys, Chris from Average Skate Reviews here, and in this video I wanted to go down a list of newbie rules. You're new to e-skating, here's some rules that you definitely want to consider so you can kind of get yourself along the right track and have the best experience in e-skate. Now before I jump into the video, I have to mention that this wasn't completely my idea. This was the idea of one of our viewers. I'll put your handle over here on YouTube. You commented and gave us kind of like a breakdown of things that you felt that new riders should consider, keep in mind as they join the sport. It was such a good comment. I just thought it would be worthwhile relaying some of that, expanding on some of the points that you mentioned and giving it to you in video format, just in case anyone didn't read that comment. So if you're watching this, big thank you for leaving that down there. It's the inspiration behind this video. Now, the first point that I wanted to touch on is going to be the community. And in terms of how many points I'm going to be going through, somewhere between 5 and 10. Now, with the eSkate community, like any community out there, there's good people, there's bad people. But with eSkate, I'm definitely going to say that there's predominantly good people that are out there. There is a few characters that are very, very strong at expressing their opinions. I like to refer to them as the daddy pigs of the eSkate world. If you've got children, you've watched Peppa Pig, you know what I mean. You know the demeanor of Daddy Pig. I'm an expert at that.
Yes, I am a bit of an expert at these things.
That's exactly what I mean by that. But the vast majority of people are sound. They're great people to be around. But more importantly, something that I've started to see is when I first got into electric skateboards, when I was riding slick revolution boards and boosted boards, the community had a stereotype of the type of person that rode an electric skateboard. But as it's opened up, as it's grown, as it's become more popular, the stereotype of an e-skate rider is now changing, and a bunch of people from all walks of life, different demographics, different types of people are all coming together and getting involved in the sport, which is really nice to see. It opens it up, and it means that you have just so many different characters that you can kind of bounce ideas off of and hopefully become friends with. So first thing is just notice that there's different people in the community. Not everyone is the same. There's very few bad people that you can't refer to them as bad people, just people that have very strong views and really love to share them. But the majority of people in e-skate are great. So first point is going to be the community. Just know that there's a difference there. Now from there, it's going to be a point about just keeping in mind when you're buying a board. And that's going to be, if you're the type of person that wants to buy a board, you want to open it up, you want to figure out how it works, you're happy to repair it, that's great. But servicing and repairs is something that I don't think enough people think about. There are boards that are very, very cheap, and you guys know that I'm a big ambassador for Evolve. I love other brands that are out there as well, including X-Way, but of course I also love Evolve. One of the big reasons that I always recommend them is because they have UK servicing. If you're based in this country, you're in the US, you can have a service center in your country. Why that's such a big deal is because although I ride these boards, I don't want to do anything to them in terms of trying to triage, trying to figure out what's wrong with them. I don't want to do that. I want to pick up the phone or go somewhere where I can drop my board off and have someone deal with it. That's me. Now, if you're different, of course, that doesn't matter, but it's why I always say to new riders, bear in mind the point about if you can get your board serviced. The way I like to think about it is, imagine if you bought a car that couldn't be serviced, or you couldn't have access to walking into a showroom, a store, and buying parts for that car. You had to do everything on the internet, wait for it to be delivered out the country. Does that sound like it's a logical thing to do, or would you rather buy something that you can have serviced, repaired, and speak to people in the country that you're in? So that's the point. Just bear that in mind. There are way cheaper options than Evolve skateboards that are out there, and some of them are really good. But the servicing and being able to go to speak to somebody face to face about an issue is a really big deal for me, and it's why I've always stuck to them, because I don't want to do anything in terms of servicing or replacing parts on a board. The most I'm happy to do is putting a bash guard on the board. That's about it. Changing wheels is annoying, but you have to do it sometimes. But everything else, I don't want to do it. So it's nice to have a service center in the UK that can help with those types of things. Now from there, it's going to be some of the points that were mentioned in the comment on YouTube, and it's going to be, don't compare your board to anyone else's that's out there. But you can fall into a trap of then being obsessed with what everyone else is riding, and that's a great gateway to kind of forcing yourself to want to buy new boards. Now, while upgrading your board isn't a bad thing, and when you grow and you develop and you feel like you need something with more power or more range or slightly bigger or whatever the characteristics that you want to improve on are, then that's a good way to then consider picking up a new board. But just don't compare what you have to everyone else's and be like, oh, but theirs is faster than mine. Theirs has more options and gears than mine, or theirs has a better remote control. I want that. Just focus on what you've got. Try and really hone in your ability, your confidence, your skill, and then kind of figure out which direction that you want to go in. And a video I did just a few days ago on spec and how that changes is worth considering here as well, because what you think might be the optimal board for you next, after you kind of ride, you get better, you kind of ride the crap out of the board that you've got now, You might consider that that board that you actually wanted is not even what you want now, and you've gone in a completely different direction. So in other words, just don't compare yourself to other people that are out there in terms of what they're riding, and focus on what you need, what you have, and how you can become a more confident, safe, and better rider, and grow your skill, hone your skill, and then figure out what you want to get next. So don't be obsessed with what's out there and essentially draining your bank balance. Just be wise about that. Now, next up from there is going to be your style of riding might not be appreciated by everyone that's out there. The first videos I put out onto YouTube, I saw a lot of comments about how I carve differently, or I carve funny, or I stand weird. Don't bother yourself with any of that type of stuff. Again, very similar to the last point. The way that you ride and the fact that e-skate is opening up to so many people, whether they come from skateboarding backgrounds or not, means that you might have a different style, a different preference or a different riding style than everyone else that's out there, or people that see you do what you do. Don't bother yourself with that. So long as you are riding in a kind of stance that's optimal for being on a board, that allows you to control it properly, that allows you to have a good center of gravity or good balance on the board, don't concern yourself with any comments about you looking different to everyone else that's carving. That's the whole point of this sport, of this hobby. It's meant to be expressive. So just because a group of people do it this way, you can go ahead and do it the way that you want to. Andrew from London, who's the drift king on electric skateboards, in my opinion, that dude rides unlike anyone else that I've ever seen. And what's funny is if you see some of the other guys that he rides with, they ride very similar to him. But if you look at people that are as skilled that ride in other places, they move on those boards and stand and kind of like move their bodies around completely differently. They have their unique style and it works for them. You create your style, develop it, make sure that it works for you, and don't be forced to kind of conform to the way that other skaters are riding. Just remember what I said about the community in the first points, that there's different types of people in this community, different types of characters. So make sure that you're kind of listening to what your body's telling you to do, your own instincts, your own gut, not outside influences. Holy shit! Now from there, it's going to be the point about limitations. And the only thing that kind of limits your ability to have fun on these boards is your own mindset. Now this is kind of a 2 or 3 part point, because one thing that I know I struggled with is if I don't have Ricky or somebody else that I ride with, if I'm out in London with Billy or with Jay, if I'm not out with those guys, then I don't want to ride because I'm on my own. Now that's me limiting my own fun and experience that I could have on these boards just based on something that's in here. Even if you're on your own, throw some headphones on, make sure you have one ear out so you can actually hear what's going on around you, and just go for a cruise. The amount of things that have happened when I've just jumped on a board and gone for a cruise and, you know, bumped into somebody that also is on a board and started talking, become friends, or just had an experience that I never thought I'd have connecting with people. Because if you're in an area that doesn't have a lot of electric skateboard riders and you do come across one, chances are you're going to have a conversation about it. But more importantly, people don't see these things very often, or as often as you might think, especially in Cambridge. So if you're riding around and you stop at a traffic light, somebody on a bike is going to stop and talk to you. If you pull up at a bar or a restaurant, someone's going to ask questions about the board. These boards are phenomenal conversation starters. They really break the ice and people kind of feel really comfortable to approach you and ask you questions about it. And again, this is where, hoping that you're one of those good people in the e-skate community, you'll be able to communicate with those people in a nice manner. You'll be able to share a little bit of insight into why you got it, how much it costs. First question they ask is, how fast does it go? But that opens up the possibility of that person, you know, maybe jumping on YouTube or jumping online and maybe even picking up a board for themselves. So it's really important to have an open, positive just thought process, mindset when you're ripping around on these boards, or even if you're considering going out and ripping around on them. It's unbelievable how many conversations I've had with people who have then followed through and bought a board, and now they're part of this community just based off of having a nice interaction with them. So in other words, just be open, be positive, don't be limited or in a negative way by your own mindset, whether you're riding on your own or you struggle to ride by yourself and you have to be in a group or not. But that's just something that I personally had a hard time with. I'm not sure if anyone else has had that as well, but it's nice to kind of just get out of your own head sometimes, force yourself to go out on it, just go for a little cruise. That made a really big impact for me, and it's one of the reasons why I'm back posting these videos. Whether I'm on my own or in a group, I'm still going to try and have fun on these boards, and it's really important to be like that. But coming back to the original point, don't be limited or held back by your own mindset. Now, another more subtle but still very important point is pushing yourself, which is a good thing, but not too much. What I mean by that is I know when I've gone out with people when I was still quite new to e-skate and they had much faster, much more powerful boards and they were much more experienced riders than I was pushing myself too hard to keep up with them. Now, pushing yourself is good because it's going to force you to develop and grow and become a better, more confident rider. But at the same time, it's not always a good thing because that's when you can risk the possibility of pushing yourself too hard and injuring yourself. So kind of go at your own pace. Don't feel like you have to do more than you're safely comfortable doing, because another point about being uncomfortable is something that we'll touch on in a sec, but you have to kind of learn where your limits are. It's good to push yourself to a point where you're being forced to develop and learn, but you don't want to push yourself to a point where you aren't in control, you aren't safe, you aren't able to control the board at, for example, at the max speed, because the way that you ride at 20 miles an hour and the way that you ride at 35, 40 miles an hour, if you guys are into going that fast, is very, very different. You have to have a very, very good level of control over your body weight, your positioning, your ankles. The slightest movement at that speed that wasn't voluntary can have dire, dire consequences. So it's about learning where your limits are in terms of pushing yourself so you can still grow, develop, and become a better, safer rider. But more importantly, not pushing yourself too hard where you run the risk of causing injury to yourself or anyone else. The last point I wanted to touch on is going to be, again, something I always mention when I do these types of videos. And if you're somebody out there that's trying to get into e-skate or has just got into it, specs versus reality. When you look at something on the internet, don't feel completely convinced that because it says this board does this range and this many miles and etc., that that's actually what you're going to get. Just bear in mind that the specs are normally tested under, most of the time, completely unrealistic, controlled circumstances that just don't apply in the real world. It's why having reviews is so important, because you get to see what the board actually does with a rider that, obviously in my case, I try to tell you how tall I am, how heavy I am when I'm doing reviews, so you get an idea of what sort of performance you can expect to get out of the board if you have similar conditions or similar size to myself. Specs versus reality is a video that I've covered in itself. I'll link it down below so you guys can check that out. But all of that being said, hopefully the points in this video are of use to somebody that's new to e-skate or someone that's considering coming into this sport or this hobby. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of information out there. Finding yourself a good channel, a good forum where you can have discussions with different people about what they've got and what you might want to consider getting or getting advice. And of course, looking on Facebook groups, that's always a great place to look as well. And the comment section down below. But hopefully we've shared something with you that is going to be helpful in your journey in e-skate, or even if you're an experienced rider, some of these points might be beneficial to you as well. If I've missed anything out, comment down below, because I think this is this type of video that we could probably make once every year or anytime there's new information that's worth sharing. Aside from that, big thank you for watching, guys. Keep subscribing, and a lot of you commented on one of the first videos that I posted after being away for almost a year, and there was a lot of love and support, a lot of welcome backs. Just a big thank you for being so supportive. More videos are coming, and I'll catch you in the next one. And also Instagram handle down below so you can keep up to date with what I do on the daily. But thank you guys, and take care till next time. Peace.